ridiculous. That's how ridiculous this matter is. The outsiders to come into invade our community, invade our families, invade our land, and tell us how we should live, tell us how we should spend our money, tell us how we educate our children, tell us how we should look after our children. You just can't do that. Because you won't let me do that to your family.
Hell no.
They got rid of the Indigenous Community Council and put a white man there so he can control the Aboriginal communities. Town camps and outstations, just like the old days, mission managers. I've got grandfathers and great-grandfathers, great-grandmothers still alive that have lived this life before and still repeating history, repeating over and over again. No, we don't want to live this life because our grandfathers have lived this life. I'm sure you wouldn't want to live this life.
In the house and out the door, chopping wood and scrubbing floor.
The belief that the Aborigines were racially inferior and not able to participate in modern society led to the adoption of paternalistic policies in almost all of Australia in the 20th century.
Washing, ironing, mending too, sometimes making it for rescue.
The Aborigines did not have any rights as citizens. They could be placed on reserves where their lives were dominated by white officials and where, in many, many cases, the children were taken away.
One of the most well-known acts of assimilation by the government was the forced removal of Aboriginal children from their families, now known as the Stolen Generation. Right up until the 1960s, more than 100,000 children were taken away to be indoctrinated into white society.
When the missionaries came and we were put into an institution, now there were things happening there which was not acceptable at all. Youth wasn't happy. The happiness came from not being beaten up by doing what you're told to do. And when the lens got over, it was used to be brought out of school just like after. There was a slow deterioration of the old way of life from the years and years and years of that new learning of how to fit in with the society. And discouraging you to remember yours, where you come from, and your people and their way of life.
Originally, I guess the assimilation policy was a way of just breeding out Aboriginal people, this idea that white people were superior and that the best pathway for Aboriginal people was to be more like white people.
Assimilation is the object of native welfare measures. This means, in practical terms, that in the course of time it is expected that all those persons of Aboriginal blood or mixed blood will live like white Australians do.
So assimilation, which was a conscious policy right up until the 1960s, is still implicit in much of what Australian governments do. Anyone who has studied policy towards Aborigines will recognise there many of the same attitudes and policies.
We're trying to do some good things. So, thank you, appreciate it.
In February 2008, the newly elected government of Kevin Rudd apologised for past injustices towards Aboriginal people.
We apologise for the hurt, the pain and suffering we, the Parliament, have caused you by the laws that previous Parliaments have enacted. We apologise for the indignity, the degradation and the humiliation these laws embody. We offer this apology to the mothers, the fathers, the brothers, the sisters, the families and the communities whose lives were ripped apart by the actions of successive governments under successive parliaments. So let us turn this page together, Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians, and write this new chapter in our nation's story together.
Congratulations to you, Mr. Wright. You made it very clear that you are the leader. Got a question today. Why is the intervention still going on?
We support the intervention. It's a difficult decision. It's a controversial decision. I don't back away from it. It's the right thing to do.
One of the government's main arguments for maintaining the intervention has been to provide much needed housing in Aboriginal communities. The health implications of the severe overcrowding that exists, of course, worst in the remote parts of Australia, really make it imperative that we look at this housing question.
To my left is the houses for government teachers, and on my right are the government employees like Shire that work for government, and yet we are here still waiting in the middle. But when they said we need more teachers, we need more employers, volunteer employers to come and work for us, boom, the house is there.
Despite the intervention, 67.2 million houses budgeted. Three years on, only 11 houses been built for the Aboriginal people in seized communities. Wish list 56 houses have been built, non-indigenous people in those communities. The Australian Nation Indigenous Times, June 2010. Non-indigenous people, meaning white.
We're thinking, what are we compared to the other people?
They call them balas. The government will now only provide housing to the Aboriginal communities in exchange for 40-year lease over community land.
Intervention has been established for that purpose, so that they can come in and build a house. Why do we have to surrender a land that's valuable for 40 years to build a house? This is their very work. You want $38 million to build a house here? If you don't want to sign 40-year lease, we'll go away and use that $38 million somewhere else. Like a bribery, really. I don't believe they really cared about the kids. Even if it would have been, they would have done it. The time they said.
In 2009, the traditional owners of Galuwaku signed the government's 40-year lease in exchange for 50 houses. Ain't that some crazy shit? For 50 houses? 50 houses, only 50? For 40 years, 50 houses? Some bullshit. But hey, look, I'm going on to part 3. I believe we should be wrapping up on this last segment here. Again, comment if you don't understand. I can, have someone explain it to me, so therefore I can explain it to you guys. I hope you guys is actually listening and paying attention to what is happening. This is recent times, that 2009, 2014. My mom was born in 1943. This started happening in 1942. And it is, and you gotta think about your city. Think about what they did to you in your city. This is America, and they're still doing it today. They put the white Jesus in front of us. They threw their schools and their teachings upon us when we was just doing fine without them. Again, I'm about to go ahead to part 3. I hope you guys are listening. Holla at me. Lil Ace.